the best quarterback in Texas is Deshaun Watson. The Houston Texans are coming off a year that was filled with a lot of different question marks and in so many different categories. Deshaun Watson was getting hurt. I mean, the guy's athletic, the guy's mobile, but for the love of God, the guy was getting hit like crazy. The offensive line couldn't guard a flu shot. This guy was having all kinds of problems. We're talking about the Houston Texans, and we're talking about the AFC South. I'm happy I didn't record this video about maybe like a week or so ago, because the whole entire division changed in the time span of about 48 hours. So this division is going to be an interesting one to predict. I know the Colts are still going to be a good team, but I do not have them winning the division. So the Houston Texans, the team we started off with, Deshaun Watson's a good quarterback. He's coming off that injury. Are going to be going with as their quarterback, and I think that that's rightfully so, because he has shown flashes of being a great quarterback. Their running backs, they do have a bit of an issue. Lamar Miller did tear his ACL this training camp, and that completely cycles everything. You have Dante Foreman is going to be probably your starter now for the Texans, the guy they're going to be running with. I'm not quite sure that they're going to be running with, and Lamar Miller getting hurt is a big blow to the Houston Texans. But as far as receiving goes, they have one of the best receivers in the league, and you know who I'm talking about. He's got hands made of glue. DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best, probably a top 3 receiver. His stock has catapulted in the last year and a half or so. He had 1,500 plus yards last year receiving, and Will Fuller 5 is also going to be coming back from that ACL injury. They do have Jordan Thomas as a tight end. They think that he's great at the goal line. So the Texans do have a very strong receiving core, but their O-line needs to give Deshaun Watson pass protection. He's been a quarterback that has had a lot of problems getting that time, and I think that as good as DeAndre Hopkins is, if Deshaun Watson could get that pass protection, he could do even greater things. But the receiving core for the Houston Texans is led obviously by DeAndre Hopkins. They do have a tight end that they like, and Wilson Fuller V, whoever you want to call it, is coming back as well. So that's something that the Houston Texans are going to be looking forward to. As far as their defensive line goes, now this is one of the best defensive players ever, and I did say that. J.J. Watt has the stats to be one of the best defensive players of all time, but he needs to stay healthy. I don't recall the last time if he has ever completed a full season in the NFL. They have DJ Reader also that is going to be on that defensive line, and Angelo Blackson was just given a 3-year, $12 million deal. J.J. Watt has the stats to prove that he's one of the best players, and he's a lethal pass rusher when he's on the field for the Houston Texans. But they need the guy on the field. That has been a problem for J.J. Watt, staying on the field the past 3, 4, I don't know, however many seasons. But he is one of the best, and he is not a guy that I'd want coming at me if I had the ball. As well, took a major hit. Jadeveon Clowney did go to Seattle. That was news. That's last week. They do have a Pro Bowler last year, and they have Zach Cunningham as well, who they think that can do it all. So the linebacker crew, they lose Jadeveon Clowney, and yes, he has had injuries as well, and he was a very, very, very hyped up draft pick. But Jadeveon Clowney, the loss of him is going to hurt at linebacker. This team has lost some defensive players, and they have some coming back from injuries. So the defense on this team is going to be a little bit scary. They have a secondary where they did lose Tyrann Mathieu, who's a ball-hawking safety, I would say, and I think that's going to hurt them as well. They also lost Kareem Jackson, but they did add to Sean Gibson, and they are getting Bradley Roby, who is from the Broncos, as well. So they have a little bit of a younger secondary, and I think when you factor that in completely, their secondary is kind of young. They're not really too familiar, but they also have 2 veterans that are coming in to mix that fold. This team, to me, the Texans have a lot of problems, honestly. They have the offense. I don't know exactly how their line's going to develop coming into the season. Their defenses, some of them are a little bit inexperienced. Some of them have injuries and are coming back. I think their defenses might be exposed this year, so I don't really know where that goes. They are not going to win this division. They're still going to be a decent team despite all that, but they are not winning this division. Indianapolis Colts. If there's anybody that's watching, it's my family in Indiana, and it is Mr. Alex Delgado. Love you, man. We always go back and forth on Facebook all the time as we share the same division, so he may not like what I have to say. Frank Reichitz is a smart coach. He's a good coach, and I think that he's going to keep this team together despite the loss. It is going to be a luckless, no pun intended, season for the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck last week announces his retirement at the age of 29. He never played a full or complete season, but the guy had stats like a monster, and he just seen Hall of Fame written all over him. Andrew Luck was really that quarterback that a lot of players would want as their franchise quarterback, but unfortunately he had a lot of injuries, wear and tear at such a young age, and he did call it a career last week. Whether he comes back or not, that's my guess is as good as yours. But I don't see Andrew Luck coming back. I think he's one of those players that's going to be set on his retirement. But they lose their franchise, their Colts franchise player. Jacoby Brissett is a decent backup quarterback, but I don't think he's the guy that's going to lead you to the promised land, and I don't think the Colts are going to win this division either. And now that was probably a shock to some of you guys because you thought that I was going to say the Texans were going to, if they weren't going to take it, it was obviously the Colts. I had the Colts winning the division prior to Andrew Luck's announcement of retirement, but I just don't think they have it this year. They also have questions also, but I do think Brissett is going to lead this team to be fairly decent. They may be able to win the division, but they are not getting that number one spot. And whether you think who I say gets the number one spot is favoritism or not, that is on you. Running back Marlon Mack was actually a bit of a surprise last year for the Colts. The first half of the season, he really wasn't doing too much, but he kicked it into gear the second half. He's the first Colts rusher since 2007 to get 4 100-yard-plus games, and I believe he also had back-to-back 200-yard-plus games as well. Don't quote me on that. He had the late season success, but they also did get 2 different guys that can be as suitable fits to running backs. Jamon Williams, I believe, is one of them as well. So we're going to see what we get from Marlon Mack, but I believe that's the guy they're going to be set on as running back because they do have a quality running back. The receiving core is led by someone who I think is really underrated as a wide receiver in the NFL. That is T.Y. Hilton. He did spend a good portion of the season hurt, but despite that, he also had 1,200-plus yards. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what this guy could have done had he played 16 games last year. Eric Ebron was also a breakout star in the tight end slot for the Indianapolis Colts. He had 14 touchdowns. But the Colts, I think, are going to need more options in the receiving aspect of it. Ebron is great, but Devin Funchess is also a wide receiver that they picked up this offseason as well, so he can fit right into that, and he's probably going to be their second go-to guy in the second slot of a wide receiver. Really help this receiving core get going. It's all a blend of how Brissett's going to mix with this offense. On their defensive line, they had a half-ass pass rush last year pretty much. They were 10th in fewest points allowed, which was also good. They had Denico Autry also, and really good. They did have a good offensive line, but their secondary is a bit weak. They do have contract as well, and they drafted 2 safeties. Linebackers, I kind of skipped linebackers a little bit. I swapped them before. Darius Leonard, he's a beast. He turned doubters into a Pro Bowl. I believe he had 163 tackles this year, 2 interceptions, and they also, if I'm correct, did draft 3 linebackers. You can't quote me on that, but this is some of the stuff that I am familiar with as well. So this Colts team is a little bit of a question mark, but I think their receiving, their offense can definitely get it going. That line's going to be able to protect them. They have Ty Hill and Eric Ebron, and Funchess I think is going to mix well into that Colts offense as well. So I think that their offense is going to be steady. I think their defense has a bit of a few question marks. Their secondary is not that strong, and I think that's going to be a problem for the Colts. But all in all, I think that they're going to be they'll be in the mix to win this division. Don't see it happening, but they will be probably second. About a year or 2 ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars were in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots, and honestly, the way the first half looked, if it was anybody besides Tom Brady, the Jaguars were punching their ticket to the Super Bowl that season, and they fell off since then. They really have. I think Blake Bortles is garbage. Yeah, I don't normally be outspoken like that, but that's just how I feel. Nick Foles is coming along, and he is, regardless of what you say, he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He led the Eagles to that Super Bowl in the playoffs as well. So I don't know if he's going to be able to take the whole hold of a franchise, especially one that has a lot of offensive question marks. And I'm not really sure what you're going to expect out of Nick Foles. for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Blake Bortles was not good. But the problem is now is that if Nick Foles goes down, the Jacksonville does not have a backup that most people are familiar with, and they don't have a solid backup. So Nick Foles is going to relying on staying healthy. Is going to have to rely on staying healthy, and I think that a lot of times teams don't realize how important it is to have backup players, especially when it comes to something like your quarterback. So the Colts were, Andrew Luck by no means is replaceable, but the Colts at least had Jacoby Brissett, who is a solid backup quarterback, and may even be a decent quarterback for the Colts this season. But that's a little bit of a question mark. You don't really know what you're going to get from Nick Foles. Running backs, it was completely on fire last year. Leonard Fournette, who was a beast, he had 1,000 yards last year, but he's got to stay healthy and he's got to avoid injuries. Whether he stays on the field or not is another problem, and I think that's why the Jaguars did go crazy a little bit on getting running backs in the offseason. But the team in general led the league in rushing, so I don't really know if there's anybody to throw to in Jacksonville. They need a franchise wide receiver player. They had D.D. Westbrook had 700-plus yards than last season as well. DJ Chark is also another guy that's coming into that mix. He did have a bad rookie season. I apologize. They drafted Josh Oliver as well. Their offensive line, most of those players are returning, but it's a bit of a question mark since it's very inconsistent. So we don't really know. Stock really went down on their defensive line. Yannick and Calais Campbell combined had less sacks actually last year. They had 20, where the year before combined they had 27. They drafted Josh Allen. They're going to need him to come up big for this defensive line on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their linebackers as well. They did snag Quincy Williams also as well. Miles Jack is moving over to the middle linebacker spot. That's also a question mark. But their defensive line, I think, for Jacksonville is going to be pretty steady. Their secondary, now this was kind of a question mark. They arguably have one of the best, if not the best, corners in the league in Jalen Ramsey. And the best duos as well. Him and A.J. Boyd are a nasty duo in the secondary for Jacksonville. And I think that team that went on the AFC Championship run was partially between them two. But they're going to be looking to bounce or work together more, especially with their safeties for this team. And I do think they're going to be awful. I think the Jaguars are going to be really bad. I think they're going to finish last in this division this upcoming season. There are just too many question marks, and they don't have enough elite players to really break through. But last but not least, my favorite team in the NFL and my professional football team, you best believe I'm coming with the facts and nothing else on this. My Tennessee Titans. I've been a Titans fan for as long as I can remember. I know my dad was a fan when they were Oilers. They transitioned over to the Titans. He was a Titans fan. When I jumped on board, I was a Titans fan. I'm a Tennessee Titans fan. And I think we're going to take the division this year, and that's just me talking from a fan perspective. A lot of you are going to probably say, well, why? Why do you think this and that? And I'm going to tell you why. But one of the reasons why I'm very concerned is the quarterback position. Marcus Mariota is going to need big steps this year. I think that he really needs to step up. I think that he has shown flashes of a good quarterback, or good things that quarterbacks can have. He's not just a mobile quarterback like Lamar Jackson. I think he can actually throw, and I think that he has the potential to be a good quarterback, but he needs to be surrounded by likewise wide receivers who have that same intent. He is going to need big steps, and he has to stay healthy. Marcus Mariota is always getting hurt. We did not have him last year in the final week of the season in that game against the Indianapolis Colts that we lost, and we actually got smacked in. I think he could have made a difference there. His mobility has been great. The guy's always getting sacked. He's always getting hit. And it's just another day with Marcus Mariota. So I do think there's potential. I like Marcus Mariota, but he's really going to have to take a step up. Because if not, Ryan Tannehill, who we snagged from the Dolphins in the offseason, is coming for that quarterback spot. And if Marcus Mariota doesn't get his head on straight, he is going to lose his quarterback starting job. And he's on the last year of his rookie contract, I do believe. So there's no set in stone that he's our franchise player, and we do not know if he's going to be coming back. So he needs this is a make-or-break season for Marcus Mariota. Derrick Henry last year was pretty garbage for the first 75% of the season until he really kicked it on. He had that game, a Thursday night game against Jacksonville. Then he smoked them in that game against the Giants that I got to go to. Then also that game against the Redskins as well. He just went on fire from like week 14 on to the end of the season. Derrick Henry was a rushing machine. Derrick Henry's a big man, and I think that he's the running back that we need to go with. He does have things that he needs to improve on, but I do like him, and I also like the pace change with Dion Lewis, who we got from New England. I think that Dion Lewis is a very good running back, and having a short running back who can run quick, do outside plays as well, is going to really help this Titans team. And I love our running back pace. Dion Lewis also had 500 plus yards last year, 59 receptions as well. Our offensive line is not consistent. We have the names, but we don't have much else. The offensive line really needs to rake it up. Mariota's always getting hit, sacked, fumbled, intercepted. Anything that can go wrong in an NFL game with a quarterback has happened to Marcus Mariota. So we need that offensive line to bring a little bit more consistency out as well at like our running backs position. This is the question here. We need the most help in our receiving core. Corey Davis is going to be, I believe, his third year in the NFL as a receiver, and he has taken progressive steps each year to improve himself. We need a lot more from him. He did have 800 yards last year. Delaney Walker went down early, one of the NFL's best tight ends that we do have as well. He went down early with a leg injury, so we're going to be getting him back. We'll also upgrade. We get Adam Humphries as well. So I think the receiving core is going to elevate, and that's something that we desperately need because it's not all Mariota's fault. We need targets to throw to as well. Defensive line is led by Jarrell Casey, who's been a Pro Bowler and a great player for the Titans. He's a monster at the end position. We also drafted Jeffrey Simmons, who had that controversial thing with him getting in a fight, or fighting to defend his sister, I believe. You can say what you want about that, but we did draft him. The problem is that we might not even get anything out of him this year. He tore his ACL, and I guess we're banking on saving the goods until the next day comes, because Jeffrey Simmons is not going to start at all this year, but he is one of the DTs that we did draft. So we might have him out for the season. We're getting Brent Ehrman. He's coming from the Ravens to help with depth on the defensive line, which Jarrell Casey has, but we need a little bit more help there. The linebacker position is really a question mark for me. I know we got Cameron Wake in the offseason from the Miami Dolphins. Wesley Woodyard has had his spot on the linebacker court set in stone, set well. But Brian Orakpo did retire at the age of 29 this offseason, so he's someone that we do lose. Harold Landry III is taking over, and they're going to be expecting a lot from him. And probably our best section of the team. We have one of the best secondaries in football. I like to call it Lockdown Lane. Logan Ryan, Adoree Jackson, Malcolm Butler, Kevin Byard, who's been a breakout star. I mean, you just put those names together, and it's just a giant smoothie of love. So yeah, we just eclipsed the 20-minute mark on this one, so I'm going to be calling it here. The Tennessee Titans are going to win the AFC South, and we're going to make our fans proud, and we're going to win the Super Bowl, and that's probably a bunch of lies, but we are taking it. We are coming for the AFC South. Mariota, please break out, do something great. Receivers, step up. Defense, keep doing what you're doing, and we'll have a good year in Nashville. And yeah, one more division is left here, folks. That is the AFC West, and man, there's a lot of talented names in the AFC West, so that's going to be fun to review.